Okay, so just a short video today. I'm filming it on my phone, so we'll see how we go. I've made a bit of a modification on my little coin purse pattern. So I've made it shorter. So it's 6 inches by 4 inches, but I'm still rounding off the bottom corners. I just use a little template. This one was a little set to cut out lots of different size circles, and I find this one a good one just for rounding off a small corner or a small from a small sized item. So I'm going to demonstrate just a quick little demo sewing up this one. The kits will include your 2 lining pieces, 2 outer fabric, chosen some really funky furnishings fabric that an enabler has sent to me, and a zip, and that's all you need. So on this one I'm going to utilize the metal that's already part of a dress zip instead of making a zipper tab. With a small coin purse, a zipper tab can take up a lot more space and can be restrictive of how you fit your hands in to grab whatever's in there. So I usually lay it up so that that's your seam allowance, and you've got a little bit of movement here. So just with the end of that zipper just pointing over, and I'll put a clip in that, and another clip. So your zipper's laying down, right side of the zip to the right side of your outer fabric, and then making sure that your curves are at the bottom. The top of your panel doesn't have the curves marked, and we'll line a lining piece up to the wrong side of the zip, just matching that up with the edges of your other piece of fabric. Just a couple of clips is all I need, and I'll change my foot to a zipper foot. Remember to move my needle position so I don't wreck my needle, and we'll stitch, always starting from the end with the tab. And I need a new needle so you can hear that popping noise. Stitch all the way along until I come to 1/2 inch from the end. I sometimes do 3/4 inch for a larger bag, but I find with these ones 1/2 inch is adequate. I can mark that so I can see it, only just. Keep stitching till I'm 1/2 inch, and then I open up the zip, needle down, and I pull that half of the zip back to a 90-degree angle. Keep going and back. In this instance I'll go back all the way, and then with my little scissors, multi-purposing as a tailor's awl, I'll just move up to that seam allowance and catch that zipper tape where it's folded back. Snip that off, and that's what you end up with, a nice turned in zipper teeth. and a tab. So I shall do the other side, and I'm going to change my needle, so I'll be back in a tick. Rightio, I am back with a new needle. So you can see this is our excess zipper tape, and I'll just snip that off. Keep it out of the way. It goes in the bin. And we'll do the other side. So again, making sure our curves are the bottom, and we're going to line up right side of the zipper, right side of our outer fabric, and just matching up the edges of the fabric there. Put a clip, another clip towards the end, bottom of our lining piece, right side to the wrong side of the zip, matching everything up along this edge. Again, stitching from the end of the zip with your tab. In this case, the metal stopper. Oh, that sounds a lot better. No popping. Still a noisy machine, but I wouldn't have it any other way. Now we're getting, as we get a little bit closer to this end, I'm again going to mark 1/2 inch and mark it out a little bit so that you can still see it when your presser foot gets up nice and close. Needle down, open up your zip so that that zipper pulls out of the way, and we're going to stitch up till my needle goes in next to that 1/2 inch mark. Pull the teeth back, and this time I'll check before I finalize, because it's nice to have those two turn-ins of your zipper teeth matching. So let's just see how that went. So just to test it, yep, that's pretty good. So I'll finish off that just by tucking that fold in so that your tape sits 90 degrees, and secure it in place. And again, trim off the excess. And we've got a nice zipper installed. Now I don't really need to press this one too much. I'll do the top stitching and then I'll press it. So with my top stitching, I always start level with where the turn-in is, and I only stitch the outer fabric. So I'm not stitching both of them. So the lining's pushed aside, making sure I'm going to catch that small seam allowance there. So your top stitching needs to be quite close to the fold of the fabric. Starting with a few smaller stitches, and top stitch all the way along. Just watching my thread. I am playing thread chicken at the moment. That not my bobbin, but my reel of grey thread's getting a little bit low. So at this end again, I only top stitch to level with that metal stopper there. I'll take those stitch length down, a few back stitches just to secure it. And we'll do the other side again, only the outer fabric, just making sure that you're going to catch that seam allowance. And we'll start level with where I finished on the other side. Increase that stitch length again, nice and close. Catching that seam allowance underneath, and we'll stop again parallel with where we started on the other side. Some nice top stitching. So now we'll press it, and I'll concentrate on making sure this lining is back clear of the zip. And when I say I press something, doesn't mean I iron. I press it, so you're not distorting the fabric in any way. Definitely just pressing with the iron. Again, I'll be back in a tick. Okay, so we've got a nice top stitching, the lining's pressed so that it's nicely away from the zipper teeth. And now the most important thing is open your zip. You won't be able to turn it through otherwise. So the final stitching around, match up your seam there. So because of the way you've stitched it, the seam allowance will naturally sit quite nicely. And I usually don't pin that seam, but I pin quite close either side so that it holds it as you're coming and going. Go to the other side. And that zipper tape will want to sit quite nicely. Again, just match them up. Pins either side. And then just a pin on each corner should be enough for this kind of weight fabric. If it's a slipperier fabric, you might need a few more. And with the lining, so this is my turn through gap on the lining. I'm going to start here, stitch all the way around and finish here. This little gap is enough to turn through such a small piece, and it's quite soft and malleable, so it will fit through that turn hole quite easily. Now with my lining, I stitch it with a slightly larger seam allowance, and that allows for a snug lining when you're pushing it back through. Just a few back stitches, because it does have a little bit of stress on it when you're turning it through. So I just follow that line. Again, you can see it's just a little bit wider. Take that pin out and the other one. And I'll scoot back here to just the width of my zipper foot, which is my seam allowance, about 1/4 of an inch. Right, go through that junction. Now with this one, you can stop and start as much as you like sewing around a curve, because it's very important. The curve on this outer fabric is very important, because that then gives you a curve when you turn it through. Alright, straighten up across the bottom. Take those pins out. Just following that curve. And stitch right up to that pin. Needle down, just check your work. Just make sure all those seam allowances sitting as they should, matching up nicely. And we'll go across all of that bulk. Just nice and slow. Now I'll start to go, just veer in a bit so that my seam allowance is a bit larger. This curve around your lining isn't as important, but you don't want to go crazy or you'll lose valuable space inside the purse. And then as soon as it straightens up, 2 back stitches. And we've gone all the way around. Now it's very important to trim all of these seams. So I use a pair of pinking shears and I trim nice and close. All the way up to there. Same with this side. Nice and close. I'll leave this a little bit wider because you turn it through a top stitch. And we'll do the same with the exterior side. Nice and close, trimming especially around that curve, so that when you turn it through, it'll sit nice and smooth. And just taking away some of that bulk. I'm going to snip this end here. Again, cutting off some of that bulk, so we'll get a nice, square end. I'm so messy. Rightio. So here's our turn through hole. I find if you scrunch up at the zip and then pull that over, that's an easy way. And you've got the bulkiest bit. Push the rest through. So while you've got that hole open, you can use your fingers just to smooth that curve out and push this end up, and you've got a nice finished end there. Very little gap and a nice metal stopper. And this end Again, we're just going to smooth that curve out with our fingers. Just twist that seam. It's going to sit nice. And while we're here, you could hand stitch this gap if you like, but I choose to just turn it over. And top stitch it closed. I've only got a little seam to work with here, so I'm going to have to be nice and close to that edge. And the way I find I can do that is I change my needle position to the other side of the zipper foot, and I can get up nice and close. Just push that seam allowance in. Trim those ends. Push the lining in. You can use a knitting needle or a turning tool. I've got my Hera marker here, which is a great turning tool. Push that in. And again, at this end, you don't have a big gap because you've only used 1/2 inch to turn those teeth in. And we've got a great little coin purse. So I'll have kits available for these. They're in some great upholstery fabrics and furnishing fabrics. Lovely textures, lovely colours. Thanks for watching.